Hunter 1 to Dumpster Queen. The shrimp is on the barbie. Repeat, the shrimp is on the barbie.
Good evening and welcome to Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, PBDC TV's place for horror movies. I am your host, Steve the Cat. Tonight is going to be a great night because we're talking about shark movies. I love shark movies. I've said many times before on this show that there are no bad shark movies. There are only those that are fun to watch and those that are fun to mock and ridicule. We're going to get to that in a moment, but first we need to check in on our production assistant, Guinevere. As you may remember, we dispatched her to the Appalachian Mountains on a mission to rescue our friend Crimson Meerkat, who is being held captive by a family of meth-dealing cannibal hillbillies. Hey, Guinevere, this is Steve. What have you got for us this week? You there, Guinevere? Come in.
Well, hey there, darling. What you doing in my cabin? You sure are a fine-looking woman. You want to come on over here and have a glass of milk? Boy, I think we should... Hey, what are you doing? Put that down!
Well, looks like Guinevere is busy, so Fancy and I are going to have to come up with some other way to fill her time this evening. So, with that, we're going to get tonight's episode underway. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're really glad you're here. Now pour yourself a cold drink and sit back because here we go.
Hello and welcome to Monster Chat. I am your host, Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus. Tonight we discuss the fascinating subject of sharks. Sharks are a highly specialized form of predatory aquatic kaiju. They can be found in all of the world's oceans, most of its lakes and rivers, and approximately half of its swimming pools and metropolitan sewer systems. Scientists believe that millions of years ago, the first sharks actually were a variety of aquatic dinosaur, that later evolved into a more compact shape for improved speed and to more easily fit into the overhead stowage compartments of commercial airlines. Also, they developed gills and became fish so they would not drown. They did, however, retain the ability to breathe air and walk upright on land.
Hold it, stop the tape. Edgar, this is even worse than your usual nonsense. Sharks did not evolve from long-necked dinosaurs, and they don't walk on dry land.
Steve, I was given no time to prepare this week's lecture, so you will have to allow me an occasional bit of academic speculation. The long-necked dinosaur hypothesis represents the latest in academic research and is highly controversial. Although it is difficult to accept, the truth is that scientists have been unable to gather sufficient evidence to disprove the dinosaur hypothesis.
Okay, something about that explanation sounds fishy to me, but I'll let you carry on.
As for sharks walking on land, the consensus in the scientific community has embraced the fact that sharks have walked onto dry land to attack humans since at least 1975. To believe otherwise is simply naive whistling past the graveyard.
Alright, I guess I'll have to walk back my objection.
Steve, your juvenile puns are not appreciated.
Oh, it's no puns. I was just carping about your lack of preparation for this episode. Do you have some sort of problem with puns?
I most certainly do. I have made my feelings on puns and metaphors very clear. Puns are a form of linguistic fraud. They distort the flow of academic discourse, and their use represents a violation of the rules of science and grammar. I will not permit their use on my show.
Sounds to me like you're just using this as an excuse to tout your academic credentials. One might say you are fishing for a compliment.
Steve, I am begging you to stop now.
Are you concerned that my keen wit will knock you off your perch?
That's it. I have had enough of your tomfoolery. I will be reporting your actions to the Human Resources Department momentarily. Goodbye.
And this has been Monster Chat, hosted by Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus. Thank you for joining us.
You did say that there was going to be a 4-star resort. There is. Absolute luxury. Rising pool, cocktails, everything a girl could want.
What?
I think I saw a shark.
Was it big?
Okay, let's talk about our featured film review for the evening. We are going to talk about this film right here, a very, very recent film called The Reef, Stalked. This, as you might have gathered from the poster, is a shark attack thriller. Now, this film is very, very recent. It was released in the year 2022, and as I am recording this, it basically came out last weekend, so normally I do not review something this new, this recently, but eventually you start to run out of stuff to review and you've got to branch out, so we're doing something new. This is a Shudder exclusive, although I believe it also had a theatrical release, or at least a small theatrical release, so you may be able to catch it there, but otherwise you can catch it on Shudder. I am a recent subscriber to Shudder, so you will start to see more content from Shudder over the course of this season. This was directed by Andrew Chalky, who directed the original film The Reef as well, and the cast includes Teresa Lian, Saskia Archer, and a number of other Australians whom you have not heard of either. Let's get into setting your expectations for this film. If you sit down to watch this film on Shudder or in the theater, what you should expect is a shark attack thriller that shoots for suspense and realism as opposed to over-the-top shark action. So, doesn't go for things like The Meg. In fact, if you like The Reef or Open Water 3, Cage Dive, which we reviewed a season or so ago, if you liked 47 Meters Down, even if you liked 47 Meters Down Uncaged, you might like this film. This film is a lot more like those and a lot less like Jaws and The Meg. It's not so much well-prepared men up against a gigantic monster shark. It's more unprepared people being stalked by a realistically sized great white shark. So let's get into calibrating your expectations. This is the scale we like to use. On the far left side of the scale, we have very campy films. On the far right side of the scale, we have very serious films. This, of course, is not an assessment of the quality of the film. This is an assessment of what your mindset needs to be going into the film if you're actually going to enjoy it without being surprised. This film is a very serious film. I've shifted it more or less all the way over to the right, not all the way over, primarily because I don't believe the behavior that they attribute to sharks in this movie is even a little bit realistic. Beyond that, the movie is completely realistic and believable. And I would say, by and large, of all the shark attacks that happen, of most of them, I would say any one of those I could see happening in real life, but I could not see all of them happening in quick succession from the same shark. It just doesn't make sense to me. But beyond that, it is a very serious film. It is a good film. I do recommend watching it. So before we go any farther, let's do our vocabulary lesson. We're doing a couple of review words this week. Of course, the vocabulary lesson is the part of the show where we talk about new and innovative words and phrases in an effort to stay ahead of social media bots and algorithms that would otherwise try to ban our discussion. Two terms this week. They are both review terms from earlier seasons. Number one, we're going to go with the term called chomp noggining. We originally debuted this one back when we did American Werewolf in London. Fairly self-explanatory, but we'll explain it anyway. Chomp noggining is a noun referring to the action of biting the head off of a character, which, if you've seen American Werewolf in London, you know there is a pretty famous chomp noggining scene in that. Now, it is important to understand that all chomp nogginings also count as denogginings in our scorecard, but not all denogginings are chomp nogginings. Now, if you're a longtime viewer of this program, you're saying, well, yeah, of course, that's logical. If you're a new viewer of the program and you don't know what a denoggining is, let's get you caught up. So our second term is denoggining, which I believe goes all the way back to the very first episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Denoggining is a noun that refers to the action of removing the head of a person or animal. Again, fairly self-explanatory, but the generic action of removing a head is denoggining. The specific action of removing a head by biting it off is chomp noggining. So, keep these terms in mind. They will become important later in the episode. So let's get into a film summary. In this film, sisters Nick and Kathy, along with their friends Jody and Lisa, are snorkeling near Australia's Great Barrier Reef. They're out there snorkeling and spearfishing. They finish up for the day. They've had a great time. As they pack their gear to head home, Kathy's abusive boyfriend Greg appears, saying he is there to give Kathy a ride home and acting like the nice guy until he gets Kathy off by himself, and then you can see he is clearly very angry at her, presumably because he didn't want her going on this snorkeling trip and she went anyway. So Nick sees this and is concerned by it, so later on Nick goes to Kathy's house to check on her, only to find that Greg has just murdered her. Greg is still in shock over what he has done. The body is probably still warm at this point. But yeah, so Nick is traumatized by walking in on her murdered sister and her murdered sister's boyfriend who committed the act. So 9 months later, Jody, Lisa, and Nick's younger sister Annie arrange a snorkeling trip to a tropical Pacific island. They're doing this because it was Kathy's dream. So they're kind of doing this in honor of Kathy, and also it's the first attempt to get Nick to emerge from her shell since the murder has occurred. She's been kind of withdrawn since then, understandably withdrawn. So the four friends take a set of sea kayaks out to sea, intending to paddle their way to a resort on another island. So they're going to do a little bit of island hopping by sea kayak. They're going to paddle for 3 days, stay 2 nights on 2 different islands, and finally arrive at an island with a 4-star resort where they plan to stay. Unfortunately, something big and hungry is following their kayaks. Who will survive? And of course, that's the important question of a movie like this. Who will survive and who will not? So that leads us to our villain profile. And of course, our villain for this film is a big-ass great white shark. We have a picture of a big-ass great white shark right here. Now, this is not a big-ass shark such as in Jaws or in The Meg, where it's unrealistically long, but realistically sized great white sharks are still pretty darn big and pretty intimidating. They're on the order of 16 to 18 feet long and would just scare the bejeebers out of you if you came across one in the water. These belong, of course, to the class of big-ass great white shark. They are a class unto themselves. Their special powers include stealth, speed, and strength, which are all entirely realistic. Special powers also include an apparently infinite capacity for eating humans, which sharks do not possess in the real world. So that's why I didn't rate this film as all the way over to the serious side of the scale. But as far as signature weapons, well, we all know what a shark's signature weapon is. Big-ass teeth attached to powerful big-ass jaws. As we've talked about when we've done shark movies earlier on this program, a great white shark can literally bite hard enough to snap a horse's femur in half. And if you've never watched Forged in Fire, for example, you've got to understand bone is a lot stronger than you think it is. It's about as strong as steel. If you beat on a bone with a knife, the knife will lose. So the fact that they can bite through that is pretty amazing. So let's get to the things I liked about this film. For starters, the film relies upon tension and suspense as opposed to non-stop action. The problem with action-based films is they're always trying to one-up each other because, what happens in one film becomes predictable in the next film and the next film, and so they're constantly going over the top and going over the top. films like this are good for kind of resetting the bar on those films as well, because this one relies upon tension and suspense and not a lot of straight-up action movie stuff. The shark and the shark attacks are mostly realistic, as I mentioned earlier, as are the dimensions of the shark. This is not the Meg or Jaws. And kind of going along with the first point, the film is very effective at building suspense and making you wonder where the shark will come from next, particularly in the first half of the film. I spent the first half of this film largely sitting on the edge of my seat and noticing from time to time that I wasn't breathing, because I was just thinking, oh, I know what's out there. Where's it coming from? Where's it going to come from? Is it below them? Is it behind them? That's one of the terrifying things about being attacked by an animal in the water, is that they can be not only in front of you or behind you, they can be beneath you, and you can't hear them and you can't smell them. They can come at you from any direction three-dimensionally. They're not just coming at you from front or side like they would be in a land-based attack. And finally, from beginning to end, the scenery and cinematography are just absolutely stunning. This is a beautiful film to watch. Absolutely stunning film to watch. You're going to want to watch this in the best resolution you can find because it just looks terrific. Things that could have been better, and I will say right up front, I do recommend this film. I do like this film. It's not the greatest shark movie ever made, but it is a competent shark film worth watching. That said, there are some things that could have been better. Right off the bat, the film loses steam in the second half and feels like it is dragging and going on for too long. In fact, there were times in the second half I was like, this is going on too long. We just need to get to the point or get this wrapped up one way or another. The shark's first victim is predictable if you are a veteran horror fan. It's not too hard to look at the four ladies and say, yeah, she's going first. There is a lot of suspense, but there are few actual attacks or kills. There's a lot of winding you up and making you think an attack is imminent. Very few actual attacks. There's a lot less violence in this film than you would expect. And now a word from our benevolent overlords at PBDC TV, your nightly heartbeat of horror.
Hello, all you beautiful people. It's your boy, Slippy. And when I'm not gouging my face down in gallons and gallons of ice cream, I'm watching PBDC TV. Yes, the most amazing TV show out there. Now keep on watching. I love y'all. Mwah! Stay nasty.
Well, gentlemen, perhaps we wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't said to ourselves, just go, 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 go for it.
Final score for this film, we're going to give it 3 paws out of 4.
Nuestra Señora de la Santa Muerte, Spanish for Our Lady of the Holy Death.
Out now!
Oh, not sex and violence!
Hi everybody, I'm Akaw.
And I'm Pre-Sexist Diamond.
And we are Roots Bleed Red on Psycho Bunny Death Cult.
Aha!
In fact, humans have a very long history of eating each other.
So lock your doors, turn out your lights, and join us for Ghoul Radio.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.
So let's get to Steve's scorecard. Kills, I counted 3, including sharks. Bare breasts, okay, we got Lithe Australian Woman in 4K HD, so you know it's going to be none. It's not that kind of film. You've chomp nogginings, also none. Now, there may be a chomp noggining occurring underwater after an attack. I mean, I don't know. You know, sharks face the same conundrum that humans do when we eat a chocolate Easter bunny. Do I start at the head and work my way down, or start at the feet and work my way up? So there may have been a chomp noggining occurring off-screen. Similarly, denogginings, none, although one may be occurring off-screen, depending upon the sequence in which the shark wants to eat somebody. Sea kayaks eaten. I counted 1. Shark tried to eat a sea kayak. You know, they will try to eat just about anything. Pontoon rafts eaten. 1. Non-fatal shark bites, I counted 2. So this is how they kind of pump up the number of attacks without having a high number of deaths. There are several attacks where somebody is bitten but lives through it. But with this film you also get some bonus features. Let's go through a few of those, starting with, are they just going to let the sea kayaks drift away while they snorkel? So at the beginning of this trip, the 4 women paddle out into the middle of the ocean, kind of halfway between the island they've departed and the island that they're heading to, and say, okay, let's dive here. And then they all pull on their masks and their fins and hop out of their sea kayaks and start snorkeling. And I'm thinking, aren't those kayaks going to drift away? Now, we find out later in the film that the sea kayaks do in fact have anchors, and so we can assume that they set the anchor. But I do not recall actually seeing that, so it's just one of those things that made me scratch my head for a while until I finally realized, okay, these sea kayaks do have an anchor of some sort, we just didn't see them use it. Is it putting your mask atop your head when you surface a sign of distress? Now, in fairness, I got my scuba diving certification back in maybe 1987, or more likely 1988. But when I got my scuba diving certification, I was taught that when you take your mask off, if you just kind of put it up on your forehead, like so many people do in the movies, that's actually a distress signal, and you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to slide it down so it's kind of hanging around your neck like a necklace. Maybe that has changed. Maybe this is just one of those things where filmmakers don't know. I thought that was an international distress symbol, so I don't think this will be a difference between getting certified in the United States and the way people conduct themselves in Australia. But who knows? Maybe one of you who's more fluent in scuba diving than I am, maybe sound off in the comments and let me know. Is that still a distress signal or not? You get realistic shark takedowns. We'll take a look at a couple of those real quick. So like I said, this film goes for realism over straight up action. You don't have sharks jumping out of the water and crushing boats. You don't have sharks jumping 30,000 feet into the air and snapping aircraft out of the sky like you've got in Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus. The shark attacks are realistic looking. Why would a shark even attack a pontoon raft? Does he hate lumber? I can understand the shark hitting a sea kayak from beneath. The silhouette of it looks kind of like prey. I don't know why it would go after a big rectangular pontoon raft. I just don't, other than the fact that it makes a great visual for the movie, I don't understand why the shark would actually do that. You get multiple Jaws homages, which you would expect in a film like this. And finally, you get, is there anything in Australia that won't kill you? Honestly, it seems like every creature and critter down there is just extremely deadly. I mean, even the things that we think of that are cute, like koala bears will actually claw you very seriously if you try to handle them. Kangaroos can actually hurt you very badly. But of course, Australia is also the home of box jellyfish and great white sharks and those swarms of crabs that crawl out onto the island and crawl from one side to the other, and big giant spiders and everything else. It is just a pretty terrifying place to go. It is the closest thing we have to Avatar on Earth. So let's get to Steve's final score for this film. We're going to give it 2.5 paws out of 4. I was hoping to give it 3. This was definitely a 3-paw film in the first half because they did a terrific job of building suspense and tension. But ultimately, it got dragged down by predictability and a slow second half. Things just slowed down dramatically in the second half and pulled it down into a 2.5 overall Paul rating. Now, this film is worth watching if you are a fan of shark thrillers. So, if you liked The Reef, the original film, if you liked any of the 47 Meters Down franchise, if you liked any of the Open Water franchise, you will probably enjoy this film as well. So go ahead and give it a try. It's not a bad film. It is a good film. It is not the most outstanding film ever, but it is a good film. Its predecessor was a better film. I really enjoyed the film The Reef. We talked about that during other stuff Steve watched this week, maybe back in Season 1 or Season 2. Liked that film a lot, so I had high expectations going into this one, and it came close to delivering on them, but it just kind of lost steam in the second half. But that is my final score for The Reef, Stalked, and that is our featured film review for the evening.
My brother keeps a human head in his closet. Every few days, it's a new head. I was going bowling with my friend David one day, and I needed to borrow Steve's ball.
Well, I can't let David mess things up. If he says anything, you know what I have to do. They're nothing. They're dirt.
What about me?
We've reached the end of yet another episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, but before we sign off for the evening, as is our tradition, we're going to take just a minute to talk about some other stuff Steve watched this week. This time around, we're going to discuss this film right here. It is a serial slasher killer film called Found. I found this film on Tubi, which means it is available free with ads. I would presume this is available on at least some of the other free streaming services as well, but if nothing else, you can find this free with ads on Tubi. This is a 2012 horror film, an American film, and as I said, it is a slasher serial killer film. And let's talk a bit about what the plot of this film is. So in this film, 12-year-old Marty tells the story of how he found a severed head in the closet of his older brother, Steve. That's literally the first line of the movie, is Marty telling you that he found a severed head in his brother's closet. So Marty is obviously quite disturbed by this, but he tells no one, and he especially is concerned with making sure Steve never finds out that he knows, for fear that Steve may kill him. Now, at the same time all this is going on, Marty is being bullied at school, so Marty's getting pressure from all sides. He's getting bullied at school, he's terrified about what's going on at home, he's starting to take solace in watching horror movies, although he doesn't necessarily have the mental callus developed to watch them yet without getting disturbed by them, but he is starting to bury himself in horror films to try to take his mind off the pressure that he's getting from a serial killer brother and a bully picking on him at school. Anyway, the crux of the film is, will Steve find out Marty knows his secret? Will Marty fight back against the bully? Or will Steve settle the score for his little brother with the bully? So, what did I think of this film? Well, I will say this. It is a very well-directed and very well-acted film. I did like this film. I liked it a lot, in fact. The story is extremely interesting, and it's almost like an insider's view of a true crime story. It's as if one of BTK's children knew everything that was going on, and a movie were shot from the child's point of view of everything that was going on, and they knew but were not in any kind of position to stop it or do anything about it. The film relies heavily upon psychological terror as opposed to action. Now, that's not to say that there's no action. There is some action, but it is primarily psychological terror. However, when the action does occur, it is spectacularly graphic. There is some serious graphic violence in this film. So what you've got is a gory horror movie with a film within a film storyline. So if you've got a film within a film, and the film within a film is taking place in the world of a gory horror movie, then it has to be twice as gory, and it gets pretty over the top. You've got some Edmund Kemper level stuff going on in this horror movie that they're watching in this film, Found. Anyway, the thing to keep in mind is that the film has an extremely dark tone. This is not a happy film. This is not a film where
brother and brother reconcile and everybody hugs at the end. It is a pretty scary film, and I would say overall it is a very good film if you can handle the dark tone and the graphic violence. Now, those things did not bother me. I enjoyed this film a lot. If you're in a bad mood and you're looking for a pick-me-up, this is not it. Save this one for a night when you're in a mood to watch something dark and gritty. But if you are in the mood to watch something dark and gritty, I highly recommend this one. Available free with ads on Tubi, a film called Found. And that is other stuff Steve watched this week.
That wraps up another episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. Of course, we always love to hear from you, so feel free to sound off in the comments about your favorite shark movie, or favorite snake movie, or favorite alligator movie, or favorite giant wallaby movie, or anything else that might be on your mind. As always, if you did enjoy the show, please give us a like and a share. The best thing you can do to help us out is to share this video, and it costs you nothing to do so. If you want to stay up to speed on our latest videos and other goings-on, you can follow us and subscribe on social media. You can find Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat is available exclusively through PBDC TV, your nightly heartbeat of horror. If you're interested in horror movies, true crime, creepy history, or unexplained events, we're sure to have a show for you. You can find us at psychobunnydc.com, and we're also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Rumble. We also have a 100% Zuckerberg-free Discord site. If you would like to check it out, just head on over to psychobunnydc.com and click the link for an invitation. We'll be back next week with a sci-fi horror comedy that combines wholesome kid movie themes with graphic violence. We hope to see you then, but in the meantime, everyone have a great week and stay safe. We'll see you again soon. Good night, everybody.